Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Welcome, survivors. This is Eerie Knight of the Pseudo Posse, and we are back with another no cheese base. Except this time, I wanted to challenge myself. Building a realistic horde base is difficult enough, since you cannot rely on overpowered block shape to do the work for you. I have previously compensated by adding plenty of electric traps to even the odds. First and foremost, electric fence posts. The stun they provide keeps you from getting overwhelmed when you don't have a zombie dropper to filter out zombies. Dart traps and blade traps also can greatly boost your damage output enough that you can shred through the horde with relative ease. These last two bases have worked incredibly well, keeping the cheese to a bare minimum, depending on your point of view, but that got me thinking, what if you want to build a realistic non-cheese horde base from the very start of the game all the way to the end? At the start, you have no access to electricity, let alone electric traps. What would that look like, and how could you achieve it without any electricity whatsoever, including the endgame base? I'm going to demonstrate what I think is an optimal, efficient design that will carry you through the entire game without cheese and without electricity, save for maybe some lights, cause who doesn't like to see? This video will be broken down like this. Part 1 will be an overview of an early game base design, with Part 2 being how to build it. Part 3 will give an overview of the late game base design, which incorporates the early build. The last part will give build details and recommendations for how to progress through the game, as in what priority should you build each component, and some ways to build it more cheaply if you don't wish to make it as big or add as many aesthetics. So without further ado, let's dive right into part 1, the early game base overview. The idea of this base is rather simple and very fun to play, especially for you agility users out there. Do you like running around, jumping from place to place, shooting and stabbing from multiple positions as you outmaneuver the horde? Well, this base does that and more. Ultimately, we are going to build a fort with the end game base design, which has nothing to do with what I just said. I just thought it bared mentioning given the look of the build. We've got two rear towers with a wall between them to prevent zombies heading through that direction. On the other side of the wall, we have a single set of stairs with two sections of scaffolding ladder. And on the bottom, we have the door trim three-sided, which, depending on your definition of cheese, you might say at this point, eerie, you master clickbaiter. And I would say, hold up, don't judge just yet. It isn't what it looks like. Okay, here comes my justification. And not, I repeat, not me coping or trying to spin something. Here's the deal. It isn't a zombie dropper, and it isn't a force field. Zombies can cross at will. Now, for you realism aficionados out there, I would say if the zombie apocalypse were real and you knew zombies were dumb and were clumsy, would you not, dear viewer, make a defensive position full of obstacles, make it tough, inconvenient for them to move around so you can more easily kill them and outmaneuver them? Humanity has been doing that in warfare since, well, warfare and humanity has existed, which happens to coincide around the same time. Coincidence? It is up to me, the defender, to make it as hard for the aggressor to besiege me, so I made the terrain as difficult as I could for them to traverse. Cheese, in my definition, isn't taking advantage of your opponent's weakness. Cheese is using unintended gameplay quirks to arrive at an unintended result. And zombies jumping over blocks is intended. Okay, justification over. Feel free to agree or tear me to shreds in the comments, but really just agree. You'll get a nice reply from me. And no, I am in no way bribing you to agree, but yeah, I am. Anyway, I digress. These shapes, while not pathable, don't present a force field since we have pathable cubes directly underneath. And the cubes are underneath instead of ground, as we don't want zombies to dig underneath. The whole reason for my long-winded justification and explanation for these blocks are that they are key to the design and your status amongst the living. The zombies tend to get stuck in them as they run around because they be dumb. And you, with your smart brain and your bow and your stabby pointy thing, are smart. And as a smart survivor, we can do all sorts of things, like shoot and stab from behind the scaffold. If starting to get overwhelmed, maybe lob a pipe bomb or Molotov. Maybe to divert their attention, run down, start running across the door trim, get some stabs in as you go, and quickly jump out of the way onto the wall. From there, you can shoot some more and then run to the other side when they get too close. This base is your personal parkour course, and by using the trim on the ground, you can easily escape, outmaneuver the horde, and get into a new position. You can even use these diversion diversionary tactics to conduct repairs like replace a broken scaffold. You know, ideally rotated the right way. Anyways, repeat this ad nauseum for the entire horde and bing bang boom, you're done. You've survived the night. Congratulations, we didn't even take too much damage. Now this base as constructed isn't meant as a day 7 horde, rather a day 14 if you are one that prioritizes building, or at the very least by day 21 if you're a bit slower. Either way, I'll show you all what to have built by the day 7 horde and how to prioritize adding extra features till you reach the day 21 horde. Alright, part 2, the build guide for what you just saw. We'll start with the construction of the tower. The blocks you'll need for this structure will be the cube, ignore the door trim 3-sided for a bit later, the cube quarter corner 3-way, the cube quarter, and the ramp incline filler half left and right variants. Now for your day 7 horde, as I just previously mentioned, you won't have time to build the entire thing, so at the very least you'll want to start off with a single tower. Though building a second tower is achievable for the first horde, it isn't required. Here's how to build. If building from the first tower, leave a 6-block gap or so in between and lay down 3 cubes. This distance will dictate the width of the build, so feel free to make the wall wider if you want a larger interior. At the corner, leave a gap and place another 3 blocks and repeat all around. In the gaps, place the cube quarter corner 3-way. Forewarning, you will need to remove the interior corners once you place down the full cube floor inside the walls, so keep that in mind. Build up the cube side 6 blocks high. In each of the corners, place the cube quarter vertically up to the height of our cubes. Next, the cube quarter will be placed 2 blocks from the ground. On top of these, position the ramp incline filler half left and right pieces. This incline should be visible and on top. Repeat this pattern all around. Now we will repeat this same pattern but in the opposite direction around the top. Start from 2 blocks below the top with a ramp incline filler piece, followed by 2 cube quarter shapes. This should leave a single cube quarter protruding upward. Repeat this all the way around and also extend the cube quarter columns in each corner. Finally, close the gap on top and cover it up. Unlike the second tower, the wall will need to be constructed for the first horde as it connects to the stairs. That being said, you don't need to construct the full length, but here's how. First, a line of full cubes on the ground. Next, a vertical column of cubes right up against each tower. Next, the cube half-centered placed next to each vertical column. And in the middle, 2 more cubes. Repeat this pattern all the way up just short of the top. On the top itself, place a line of cubes. Now for the first horde, you don't necessarily need the cube floor, though if you have the time, I would highly recommend it. If not the first, by the second horde. Anyways, place the cube floor and recall how I mentioned you need to remove those shapes from the base of the tower, case in point. Now onto the stairs. Start with the cube half shapes and stack them side by side to form essentially a single block width. Why might you ask? So we can in effect place a cube in the center of the voxel grid, and just shy of the top, place 2 full cubes instead. Next, stack 2 full cubes until you reach 1 block lower than the cube half stack. Place stairs filled on top. Do another cube half stack topped with stairs. Next, a full cube stack, but this time up to the level of the stairs, as we'll eventually put the scaffolding ladder in this spot. Finally, continue the pattern until you reach the bottom. Okay, so at this point we've got 2 towers, a wall between, and a set of stairs. For the day 7 horde, all you need is 1 tower, the wall, and the stairs, and this next part coming up. You want to dig out an area the width of the region between the towers, plus a bit extra up to the middle of either tower. Fill in the region with cubes, though you don't need to necessarily fill in the whole area for the first horde. On top, place the door trim 3-sided, oriented such that the 2 shapes form a door-sized hole. Place these all around the cubes surrounding the stairs. In front, place a row of full cubes. For the first horde, you'll want to cover the area immediately in front and to one side of the stairs, the side in which you'll build one of 2 walls. The reason being you want to block zombies from trying to get onto the door trim from the side, plus to give you at least 1 wall to run around during your first horde. For the wall, place a row of cubes on the ground and alternate between full cubes and cube half-centered, with each section being 2 blocks wide and 2 blocks high. Eventually, the final base design will have a wall near the height of the towers, but keeping them this low saves on materials early game and also allows you to jump onto it from the bottom. And once you have the time and resources, make an identical wall on the other side. And one last little addition to the stairs, put some stairs filled corner on the sides of the bottom stairs filled shapes. Behind those, place the stairs filled diagonal too. Lastly, in the front, place some stairs filled shapes to allow zombies an easier time up, though you could force them to jump as well. The very last thing you need to do is to make the scaffolding ladder barricade. barricades. Cover the width of the stairs, and if placed 2 blocks high, you can easily jump over it with parkour, though zombies can get over it too, so be careful. Alternatively, you could place it 3 blocks high and still use parkour to jump around it. At the core of this build, all you need is a couple towers and a couple walls, so if you want to forego the aesthetics and just make some cube towers, cube walls, and some stairs with the door trim, then that will work plenty well. Or if you think my aesthetics are crap, feel free to substitute your super awesome preferences. And so ends part 2. That covers the entirety of the early base build, which should be fully completed at the latest around day 21 Horde and Vanilla. Possibly day 28 if you're a bit slow, though you run the risk of cops starting to spawn and making things more difficult. Now let's jump right into part 3, the late game design overview. In designing the rest of it, I knew I wanted to make an enclosed fortress, though I wasn't exactly sure at the outset of what the ultimate design would look like. I had thought about placing some more obstacles along the top of the wall and using parkour to hop in between the scaffolding ladder or some other block shape along the length of it. But I didn't want to clutter up the top of my walls because they're so pretty. Instead, I opted to keep the walls open, allowing zombies to funnel up the stairs and across them. While they move across the bottom where we once parkoured during the early Horde, we now use it purely as a slowing mechanism to get really nice grenades and molotovs on the zombies. Also, we can get some easy gunshots off on the Congo line of zombies making their way toward the stairs. You'll obviously notice the walls are now higher, 1 block short of the tower height, and the top of the wall is 3 blocks wide to accommodate the zombie traffic. On the sides of the walls are 2 entrances so zombies spawning from the outside can enter on either side. And what's that on the other side of the towers at the end of the wall? Our main building. So, full disclosure, I had grand plans for the structure, and after spending so much time on the wall in the interior area, I was kind of running out of time to get everything finished for Taco. So I kind of did this building quickly. It didn't come out how I envisioned, as it was a bit of a rush job. The first thing Taco remarked after seeing it was, and I quote, "Wow, that's ugly." Yeah, she isn't that wrong in my opinion, though it doesn't hurt any less. And at one point it was uglier still, but I couldn't call that the finished product. I do have some standards, so I cleaned it up a bit. Anyways, you'll notice zombies are only heading in one direction toward our fort, completely ignoring the other wall. That is because the other side is our entrance into the base proper. Up the ladder we go, and up top. Here we are, home sweet home. This is where we will spend the Horde in the late game. Do note that if you want to save on materials, you don't need to build the main structure this large. This part of the build can be built on a smaller scale, as the size isn't the most important part. The reason that I did build this high though was to build 15 blocks above the ground, because zombies will drop and we wanted to avoid rage. But hold on a second, I'm sure some of you are chiming out. You are a double master clickbaiter. No, hold on a second. You all know what's coming. Justification time. Okay, I said no zombie dropping block, which is absolutely true. We use no cheese shapes to drop zombies. Instead, we use our robotic sledge turret. It is absolutely fair to use this mechanical device to forcefully push zombies down, as that is its intended function. So, not cheesing. Huzzah! Game, set, match. We've got a little ledge that we can safely place our robotic sledge in position at the start of the Horde. Okay, back to the zombies. Once they reach the end of the wall, they come through the opening up the ladder, meet our nice scaffold barricade, and get unceremoniously pushed off. Whoops! Upon reaching the bottom, they run through the opening toward the door trim and the stairs to repeat the loop. While zombies are doing their ladder climb, we can melee shoot, throw molotovs at the climbing zombies. The sledge prevents us from getting swarmed, and all of our damage output will thin out the crowd as they climb. As they continue to run around, we can make our way towards the front where we have the pull four-way and some shutters, so we can shoot as they traverse across the door trim. Take some pot shots, throw some explosives, and return to our ladder for some closer action. During the Horde, we can shift from one section to the other, or if you're playing co-op, you can set up position according to your preferred playstyle. This does play rather differently than the early Horde base, and I did that on purpose as I thought it would be cool to have a mix of playstyles as you progress. Though if you wanted to still have some parkour action, you could leave the scaffold barricades on the stairs, place more along the wall, and use that to run around and fight, and use this design as a fallback position in case you get overwhelmed. Anyways, this base works amazingly well, uses no electricity in the defense. I would consider this base to have minimum to no cheese, though reasonable minds can differ. And even more reasonable minds can agree with me. Or if you are of Taco's mind, you can call it ugly and leave. I'm not hurting. You are. Part 4, the last part. We'll start from the early HordeBase design, though with a reworked paint job. And we'll immediately take out the end stairs as we'll be extending the length of the door trim section. Increase the height of the existing wall up to 1 block less than the height of the towers. The top layer of wall should be full cubes. Add a stairs filled shape to ease the transition from tower to wall for the zombies. Back on the bottom, I extended this section of door trim by 4 blocks, giving me 2 complete door trim sections. The longer this section, the more time you have to target zombies, so you can make this part as long as you want. After building it to the desired length, fill in the wall on both sides using the same pattern we've been using. Time to increase the width of the top wall to 3. Along the sections of wall where we have the full cube, place the stairs filled quarter. In between these, put cube halves, rotate such that it is level with the top surface. Below the stairs filled quarter, place the cube half ramp. You'll repeat the same layout on the outer part of the wall. Now we're going to add some crenellations on top. Start with a pole and rotate those such that they are lengthwise against the wall. On top, run the cube half over the length of the poles. And on top of the cube halves, place the cube quarter horizontally, leaving 1 block gaps in between. You'll need to do this for both the inner and outer edges of the wall. At this point, it is time to make the side entrances for the zombies to enter. Because we don't want them to bunch up and get stuck as they enter en masse, we make the entrance comprised of full cubes instead of the door trim. This way they can run directly inside and then slow down. That way they are in full view for us to shoot and grenade. Make sure to place stairs filled shapes on the edges to give them easy access inside. Finally, we can frame out the opening with the running cubes from the ground toward the wall. Ultimately, you'll want to fill that in as we've done with the rest of the wall. Okay, now we're getting to the main building and the fighting position. Considering I am not 100% thrilled with how the aesthetics turned out on this one, I'm going to skip around through this part of the build to only highlight the more interesting and functional parts you need to get this base working. This part of the build can be pretty much anything, any size or shape, as long as it covers the span of the interior area we just built. Okay, so for our entrance, I used the cube half corner to make an arch-like structure over the opening. This will give zombies an opening back out after they drop, and also allow zombies from the backside of the base spawning in to get inside from this direction. To add a bit of definition to the wall, I decided to go with the cube 3/4 shapes on the edges. I decided to give myself 5 blocks width from wall to wall for the interior of the main structure. You could go a bit narrower to save on materials, but it wouldn't go any less than 3 as it will get too narrow for the later hordes. On the base of the walls, I placed cube half pieces vertically and capped them with the cube half ramp, which has a similar look to the towers on the opposite end of the build, but just wider. And I used the same corner shapes for the backside opening for zombies spawning in from behind us to enter through the main building rather than the sides. In between the gaps of the vertical cube halves, I placed cube 0.25 meter shapes. Inside our structure, you'll want to give zombies a path toward the ladder. Make sure you give ample space to the side for zombies to fall after getting pushed off the ladder. To give yourself a bit of fighting room, don't place the ladder right up against the perimeter wall. I ended up building the ladder the 3rd block from the wall, giving myself 2 block width up above to fight. If you want a bit more breathing room, move the ladder forward a bit more. And if you want to minimize zombie rage, make sure the effective height from the bottom floor to the top of the ladder is around 15 blocks. In order to place the robotic sledge on this block, which is 2 blocks to the right of the ladder, I built a 3 block high ladder, and on top, I am placing cube halves to give me a ledge to walk on. It is just enough space to easily get around and just high enough that you can place and pick up the sledge. Any higher and you won't be able to reach it. To protect the sledge and zombies from trying to jump on top of the block and turret, place the pull double and pull double top in front of the turret, which will still allow the turret to hit through while preventing any would-be clever zombie from trying to get around. In front of the structure, I placed some pull four-ways and eventually added shutters on the side to better angle Molotovs down toward the bottom door trim section. So what would the progression of this build look like as you build beyond the early base? You should prioritize the zombie wall path and ladder up to the fighting position. You can add the other wall for your personal entrance and the remaining structure at your convenience. And there you have it, folks. I've been really enjoying trying to make no-cheese bases recently that don't look like wipeout courses. Bases more grounded in realism. If you've got any suggestions or ideas of what I could do in a future build, please share in the comments. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to give the video a like for the algorithm and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. Tap the bell for notifications so you don't miss out on the next one. Also, a special shout out to our wonderful Patreon community. Thank you all so much for your generosity. On that note, this is Eerie Knight signing off. See you all in the next one.